Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Brawlhalla Gaming, where the focus is gaming, fun, and friends. I am here with Scott. Hi,
Yep.
Scott.
Hey, Jason, how you doing?
Good, good. Uh, it's been a minute. It's been holiday craziness. We've
It
both
has.
been, the whole Brawlhalla gang has been super busy with all of the holiday goodness. But I believe most of our stockings were filled with lovely miniatures. I know I am fully up to date on all of the Warcrow goodies.
I'm a little bit behind, but that'll be fixed here hopefully this month. Actually, fully
Fantastic.
fully caught up to date is the plan.
Yes, yes, yes. So we have already brought you one episode of the starter box from Winds of the North. We
Mhm.
did the orcs, the northern tribes. And today we are talking about the hegemony of Embersig, the other half of the starter box. Uh, One of the two factions that have been released off the cuff for Corvus Belli and Warcrow. I've had a few games against these guys. I've not had a whole lot of games with them, but they are certainly a force, and they
They most
have a
definitely are.
fantastic lore behind them. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about the lore, a little bit about their nation, and then we're going to get into each of the unit cards from that box. But Scott is going to take us through a little bit of the lore to start us off.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. The hegemony of Embersig is the youngest faction or nation, if you will, of Lindworm, just under 100 years old. They are descendants of the seven tribes of the Magyar, that kind of migrated over uh, after the Gaia Sale, which was the Elven nation, had its huge civil war. uh, they pushed off the dark ones that were specifically tapping into the magic and embracing the tinge and things like that. So they had that huge civil war. The seven tribes of the Magyar kind of migrated over to the region that is Lindworm here that we know of and we focus on in the maps, uh, specific to where it says the modern day hegemony of Embersig. They're a very cosmopolitan nation, made up of humans, Astari elves, and Ghent dwarves. Humans make up the vast majority of those. The Astari elves are the remnants of that Gaia Sale elven nation. Uh, a good number of the elves after the Civil War that were around went over to the forest to become the CNN elves. Those that remained and became friends with the humans and embraced the humans, uh, and started to become teachers and instructors and things like that, became the Astari elves, and they now live within the hegemony of Embersig, and they're treated as citizens of that nation, which many of the other nations cannot say the same thing, such as feudum, where elves are treated with disdain and usually thrown out of the feudum nation. The other portion is the Ghent dwarves. Those are the dwarves that essentially broke off many years ago from Mount Haven because they didn't want to follow the Mount Haven hierarchy, and they wanted to actually have more of their trading profits. Because they were mainly merchants and things like that, and they wanted to gain more of those profits and keep them for themselves. So they kind of broke off and rebelled and joined. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of the people that they joined. It was a nomadic tribe that nomadic tribe and peoples eventually joined the hegemony of Embersig, and so did the Ghent dwarfs, who then also became uh, citizens of the hegemony of Embersig. Let's see. The nation is run by a hegemon. The current one is 12 years old, but he also uses and talks to the Council of Four, which consists of the hegemon themselves and a representative from each of the three races. So a human representative, an Astari elf representative, and a Ghent dwarf representative. And each of those are determined in different ways. Like the Astari representative to the Council of Four is specifically chosen by the head of the magic school. The Ghent dwarf is, excuse me, uh, I believe that there's a vote cast by each of the houses, like the families of Ghent dwarves that live in the hegemony of Embersig. And the human one, unfortunately, I don't remember what it was specifically. I'll have to look it up. My apologies. But there's so each of the three are chosen in very different ways. I believe it's one of the nobles gets elected, if I remember correctly. The hegemony is not only the most cosmopolitan nation on Lindworm, it's also got the largest land area, as well as it's the richest. And it's also got quite a lot of culture because it's actually broken up into 8 different provinces. And each one of those are a former distinct nation on its own that had its own cultures, sometimes some of their own languages. There's different languages spoken all throughout. So the hegemony of Embersig truly is like that pinnacle of, cosmopolitan. We're everybody lives in harmony. Everybody gets to partake. Everybody is an equal to everybody else. They really are focused on the way that they're very orderly. So like the Black Legion, which is the most well-armed and advanced army in Lindworm, is specific. Like their training is what does it for them, along with the fact that they're super rich as a nation, so that their army, the Black Legion, because they're named after the black steel that comprises their armor. Their training is bar none compared to all the rest, and I think it kind of comes out in the gameplay.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, I was just looking at the pages. If you have your books and you are listening to us while you have your books, you're on page 47. That's where all of the provinces are listed, and I'm sure all of us will butcher every single one of those province names. Especially there's looks like a little bit of Norse pronunciation for one of them. So I'm not even gonna
There's
try.
definitely some Eastern European influence with
Yes.
the namings. A
Yes,
lot of the
yes,
namings.
yes. So I'm not even going to try because I will butcher them, but it's very interesting. I personally have not finished this section of the fluff. I've read the Northern Tribes, but I've only read a little bit of the Hegemony. But you definitely get really the flavor of the box is you have your Northern Tribes, the Orcs. They're rough and tough, and then you've got the Hegemony, which you have this rich nation full of
Mhm.
a melting pot of cultures. Um, and they have the money and they have the power, but that doesn't mean they necessarily have full control
Yep,
because
exactly.
there are a lot of forces that are going against them. So as much as they'd like to try to be the main, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are because there's a lot of passionate nations out there that want a piece of Lindworm.
Exactly. Like to kind of touch on some of those, feudum is very, very the relationship with feudum right now is very, very tense because one of the current provinces of the hegemony of Embersig used to be a territory of feudum, and it actually contains one of their religious cities, their sacred cities, because the tomb of like one of their original saints or kings, I can't remember which one it is actually in that city. So it's no longer under feudum control. It's now under hegemony of Embersig control because it's one of their
Right.
provinces. So
Yep.
that's obviously going to cause tension.
Yeah.
Mount Haven, there was a whole mountain range that came over to hegemony. So there's still some fighting going on there. Down to the south, you've got the Great Forest butting up against the hegemony. So you've got CNN elves, you know, obviously in conflict because if they're encroaching into the forest, that causes a problem for them.
Yeah, and that just popped up the map so we can kind of see what we're talking about here. So I'm guessing, and I haven't looked at this personally, but the Haven Court is their province, is Feudum's province. I'm guessing.
Shravencourt is actually the city, the
Okay.
capital city. That's the
Is that
capital city of Feudum.
okay? Is that where the hegemony province that they had taken over? Like, is that where that's at, or do
No,
you know?
it's just to the west of that.
Just to the west of that. Okay.
Yep. So if you look just to the left of where Havering is and south of Mount Haven, that light yellow there,
Mm-hmm.
it's that province in there.
Gotcha.
And unfortunately, I'm drawing a blank on the name of it right now without having to thumb through the book.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
As you can kind of see here, the yellow of Hegemony of Embersig is definitely the largest land area and landmass for any of the nations in Lindworm.
It's amazing how that is in history of hey, the more land you have, the more prosperous you are as a nation typically.
And also, the
It's
more
like
enemies you usually end
and
up
the more
making.
enemies, you know. It's an age-old story that has been around forever. And it's the same fight. So why don't we create a fantasy world based on the same thing? Because that is a tried and true formula for chaos and interesting storytelling. That's for sure.
It is. Yep, it is. And of course,
Um,
the newest addition to the warring factions was the Northern Tribes that we talked about in our last video. If you look directly above where it says Mount Haven there, you can see that light blue where it says Knoll. That's where the Northern Tribes have come in. That whole light blue section directly above, it's Bruna,
yes.
directly above that near Knoll, used to be hegemony territory. But because the Northern Tribes, led by Albork and Alwart, kind of took that over, now there's even more conflict. So more fun to be had on the tabletop to see which way all these
Absolutely.
nations end up.
And more storytelling, more narratives, because as we know, this game is right now. That's the focus, is the narrative portion, um, and it's going to be exciting to see that unfold as the stories kind of unfold.
Exactly. And yeah, that's a good point. It's going to be really interesting to see how these like boundaries change throughout the years. And like when yes, the game just launched,
It's,
but I mean, if the Infinity Universe that Corvus Belli has created is any indication of how as a company they like to move the narrative forward.
This map will not look the same.
This
in 5
map
years.
will not look the same in 5 years. Totally agreed.
Yep.
Awesome. Let's talk.
Yeah. So we're going to
units.
talk about some units. Absolutely. So when you get the box, it really obviously by design, you have your Killy faction, you have your hard hitters in the Northern Tribes, and then I would say that the hegemony are your more defensive, take the hit type of encounter unit. So really, you get a flavor for both aspects of the game in the box. I think it's a good choice. You have two great nations, and you have two totally different play styles that you can try. So you really get a good breadth of all the rules, a good portion of the rules, and how they're going to work and how they're going to evolve, especially when the new stuff comes out. Hopefully, Adepticon. We're hopefully going to get an announcement on a new faction by then.
I believe that announcement should be coming sometime this month in January about what's going to be released at Adepticon in March.
Fantastic. So we're going to get right into it. I personally have played more against these blokes than I have with them. I think I played one game with them. I will say overall, as I was looking at the cards when I was putting this presentation together, we had a lot of keywords with the Northern Tribes. Once we get to it, there's only one. There's only one unit in the starter box that actually has a keyword. Everything else doesn't really have anything in that top right, which I didn't realize until I really looked at it. And I thought that was very interesting. So really what you're getting is what you have on the card for the most part. So the first unit, we have our Black Legion Bucklermen. This is our base infantry unit, and they are some humans. Pretty basic stats. all around. They move at a 3/3. They have a charge of 9. The northern tribes, usually most of them have a charge of 10, so their charge range is not near as long. Each model is 2 wounds. They have a willpower of an orange dice, morale of 1, and you can take up to 3 of these units. Very common with the infantry units we've seen. I believe out of the starter box and most everything that we've gotten, they're the only thing you can take that is availability of 3.
The bucklermen as well as the hunters, yes. So like the base
Yes.
infantry,
Yep. Just
yes,
the base
correct.
infantry units.
Yep. All
As
the
we go down there,
characters,
yes.
all the characters are availability 1. Yep.
They're 20 points. And so their stat line, when you have a unit of 3 or more, your attack, you're hitting with a red dice and 3 orange. And then your hollow special is your, if you roll a hollow special, you're adding a block to your roll. And their defense on that side is 2 green and a black. And if you have a filled in special, you are adding a defense to your roll. Here is what sets them apart to me from other units. They have a conquest value of 2.
Yes.
So they're going to take a point most of the time.
Yes. Provided, if you're going into the conquest value where you're contesting it, so you've got a unit from each faction near the objective, more times than not, as long as it's like a 1-to-1, 1 unit to 1 unit, the bucklermen are going to take it.
Yep. Just to finish out the cart before we talk about this unit, if you are down 2, you are attacking with 2 orange dice, 2 yellow dice. The special is the same. Hollow special gets you a block, and then on your defense you're rolling 2 blues, and a filled in special you are adding a block, and your conquest value goes down to 1.
Yep.
So I can speak to this unit on having played against them. In my experience, they are a very good unit to hold a point. They have a high conquest value. And I feel fairly consistently they are at least rolling 4 blocks fairly consistently. For sure 3.
Is that rolling or inclusive?
That is inclusive of switches.
Okay.
Yep. I've seen them roll 5. So overall, this unit is hard to kill. And they're hard to move. Especially when we get to
the word I would use.
Yes, they're extremely durable. How do you combat these guys? My experience, you are essentially when I'm going to kind of use a mechanic from other type of games, but you're essentially trying to move them off the point. You're not trying to kill them. I don't think you're going to very often wipe this unit off the table. You need to get them demoralized. You need to get them vulnerable to help you out, or you need to put conditions on them.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to win your attacks. So what I felt on this game with your attacks is you have to make sure you're attacking with a pretty high dice pool to get the hits and really use a unit that can do auto hits, either by adding stress or by your switches.
Are you talking specifically about an auto-included success, or are you talking about
auto-included success? I would say auto-included success. Make sure you have those successes, because your goal is to not kill these guys. Your goal is to move them, which means you need to push them off points. That's what needs to happen.
You want to win the combat by causing more wounds to them than you suffered, and then being, as the winner of the combat, being able to push them.
Correct.
And then you can potentially follow up to keep them locked and engaged in that new location away from the objective.
Absolutely.
Is the main goal.
Yep. And I think that's where also terrain really plays in your plan. The more I've played, if you are playing the method of where you're setting a terrain piece, your opponent's setting a terrain piece, I think it's becoming apparent to me, and you can correct me because you played more games this, that setting the terrain up from a competitive standpoint is to help you not get pushed off of points. But that's also why I think the rule of make sure your terrain is outside of 5 strides from an objective is also important.
Yes.
There's a reason why they do that, and I think that is a very important reason to have.
Yes.
Um, because of the push mechanic and because of how hard it is to overtake some of these high conquest value units. Because Northern tribes would have to get 3 units with a conquest value of 1 just to take the point. Because even if you have it and they tie it, like unless you're pushing them, you're not relinquishing that point.
Correct. Yeah. If it's a tie, whoever had the point maintains it. So yeah. Absolutely.
So Bucklerman, they're gonna. I mean, they don't hit bad either, especially, and we'll get to attaching commanders and things like that. I've seen these guys with Drago, and it is ugly.
That
It
could be
is
ugly.
absolutely
Yes.
ugly because Drago's
Having the war
also
surgeon can also be ugly.
and having a war surgeon attached. I think we're going to see a state in the game where you're at least taking 2 of these base infantry units. I think that's on both sides of the board. I think that's at least going to be 2. I would not be shocked to see 3 consistently either, especially on the Bucklerman size.
Depends on the new units that come out and stuff like that. But yeah, I could very easily see multiple of.
And I haven't played a lot of the new stuff yet, so like I can't say that there's something out there that just murders these guys. But I mean, if Alborg or Nord or any of those named characters aren't wiping them out, then I don't know that much else is going to. So really strong unit in my opinion. Very, very strong. Very good at controlling points and holding points.
Agreed. Yep, totally agreed. What is our next card?
All right, next card. All right, our base high command unit is the
Let
Hetman.
me just give a little bit of background here. A Hetman is basically a commander, and he commands an entire company. So underneath the Hetman, you've got several units of Bucklermen, you've got artillery units, you've got the magic, you've got the engineering, you've got the cavalry. All of it rolls up to the Hetman. So a Hetman is just below general. So there's multiple Hetmans, leading the companies. Sometimes there's an auxiliary as well attached to the army and to the company. And those are the less well-trained. They're more like the militia from each one of the provinces, things like that. So the Hetman truly is just below. So he's probably like a colonel, if you want to think about like modern military naming conventions, in ranks, because he's below general, above, like say a lieutenant, things like that. So he commands an entire company. So that also is why you can see 3 command tokens.
3 command tokens. And as you kind of go through the game, you'll find that when you start getting the Beyond box and some of the newer units, the Hegemony have quite a lot more command tokens than the Northern tribes do. And it's not even, some games it's not even close. I think one game I played, it was 9 command tokens to my 5.
Yeah, that can happen. The offset to that is, before people start thinking that's super massive, there's several of the command abilities that you can only use like a maximum of 3 per game. Like if we look at the one that's on the screen right now, discipline, that's once per round. So that means at most it can be used, if it's a 3-round game, it can be used only 3 times in the game. Right. So it's not like it's something you can be using over and over and abuse it. So I think Corvus Belli has done a really good job of keeping the more powerful command abilities limited in their usage by making it once per round.
Right. All right, let's get into the card a little bit here. He is 25 points, 3 command tokens. He moves at a 2/3 with a charge of 8. He is a 3 wound model. His willpower is 2 orange dice. His morale of 2 and availability of 1. He can join any infantry units. Right off the bat there, I look at the Hetman as we're looking at this as a defensive, so he's slower. His charge range is smaller. So I could take that as he is more of a tactician. They're more of the defensive, cautious, and attack when you need to, sort of, as opposed to like Northern Tribe type commanders where they're just going all in and hacking and slashing and getting after it.
Yeah, he's more of the leader. I mean, he'll go with the troops as opposed to staying in the back. But yes, I think you're right. He's showing as a little bit slower, not leading from the front, but still going with. Because in order to become elevated to the rank of Hetman, you actually had to have been a lower rank in, I believe it's the infantry, the navy, the I think it's artillery, as well as serving as the quartermaster. So that kind of goes back to the organizational skills of the Hegemony of Embersig that I talked about, where like they're very structured, they're very rigid, they bring out the best of all their people. They understand that logistics wins wars.
Yes.
So in order to even become a Hetman, you have to have proven and served for at least one season in those 4 other areas.
Yep, very cool. Very interesting. All right, so the his abilities, his attack defense, he does have a range attack of 8 strides. He's just rolling 1 orange dice and does an automatic success or automatic hit. You do have a hollow special as your switch, where you add a success to your roll. So not fantastic, more of like kind of like probably a chip damage sort of deal. When we're looking at it, maybe he doesn't have anything to do. Maybe he's holding a back point and you just want to throw a little damage out there. His melee attack, we have you can stress him to add a success. He's rolling a red, yellow, and a blue dice and gets an auto success. And on defense, if you stress him, you add a block, and he is rolling 1 blue dice and has an auto block as a part of that as well. So again, a little more defensive, not as killy. He does have a conquest value of 0, which I think for high command mostly is fairly consistent.
I'm fairly certain at least Alborg, and I think they're both Alborg and the Wrathmane are also like that. Yeah.
Yes.
When they're at least when they're solo by themselves.
Yes. You can spend a command point for discipline. So that rule states no line of sight. During your activation, once per round, reduce 1 stress from allied units within 20 strides. So we are rallying our units essentially. He's the rallying type of commander. His passive is inspiring leadership. You do not have to have line of sight, and all allied units within 20 strides may use your willpower instead of theirs. Okay, so you are helping keep your units from panicking or being panicking off the board. You can activate them and add a stress to them without feeling bad about it. Essentially,
Exactly. Like if you're to look at the Bucklerman, they had a morale of 1 and a willpower of a single orange die. If you've got a Hetman within 20 strides, you can reduce one of those stresses once per round, like you said, with discipline. And that leadership, if they start accruing more stress than they have of their morale, that inspiring leadership is going to come in big. Absolutely. Because that extra orange die is going to keep them from being demoralized and let them stand their ground.
And there's where your counter is, because Northern Tribes are trying to demoralize you, and you're trying to keep your units from being demoralized.
Yep.
So there's the
provided you're positioning correctly.
Correct. Absolutely. Yep. If you attach this Hetman to a unit, you're still rolling the same willpower of 2 orange dice. This is where it's drastically different. You are not adding any attack dice. You're just adding an auto hit to that unit. If you roll 2 for every 2 hollow specials that you roll, you add an automatic hit to your roll, and there is no defensive add-ons. The trade-off to that is that your conquest value of your unit goes up by 1. So if you Add these to a Bucklerman unit. You are now at a conquest value of 3. You now have a very tanky unit contesting a point that is very hard to move, very hard to get successes on. He's gotta have a little bit of a clapback on anything that attacks it, so you got to be careful of that because that auto hit's coming because not many, if none, of the northern tribes have any sort of defensive die roll on their attacks.
Right. Right. And
From the
the one
starter box, at least, for sure.
correct, yeah. And the one thing I'd like to add is, when you're mentioning the if the hetman is joined to the unit of Bucklerman, if you look at the helmet icon up at the circle of the picture of the hetman, excuse me, that denotes that he is an officer. So when he joins a unit of infantry, he actually, one, becomes the unit leader, and two, he counts towards the total number of models in that unit when you're determining which of the 2 rows you're looking at. So if you do me a favor and flip back to the Bucklerman for a second, thank you. That top row of 3+, you attach a hetman. Your starting unit of 4 plus the hetman now means you're looking at a Bucklerman unit of 5. You can lose 2 standard Bucklerman and still be in that top row when the hetman is attached. So having an officer in units really does help maintain the full effectivity, and using that full strength row as long as possible.
Yep. To round out the card, you can spend a command token to for discipline. This is worded a little bit differently. So once per round, if your unit is to suffer stress, ignore it. Pretty powerful. You are no longer you don't have a bubble, a reduced 1 stress bubble now. It's just the unit itself. But if it suffers stress, you just ignore it.
Once per round.
Once per round. Okay. So if they get hit a second time, then they'll start taking it.
Correct.
So essentially, if they activate and you stress the unit to activate them again, they're not going to suffer that stress, correct?
Provided you spend the command token, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
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 So right there, I mean, you have a pretty powerful ability. And then the last passive is Steady Soldiers. Your unit may repeat their whip rolls.
Again, that's pretty big, especially if you think about the fact, if you look at the willpower of the hetman on the lower half when they're joined, because that's an absolute value, it's going to replace the value on the card, as opposed to the plus, like you see the additive plus of the attack
right
when they're joined. So now if you've got the hetman joined to the Bucklerman, their willpower is now 2 orange. If you fail it, cool. With him there, you can at least repeat it and try to stand your ground the second time. Yep.
Yep. I mean, I think most of the time you're attached in this unit. I mean, unless I think early on, I mean,
either that, unless you want to keep the bubble going.
Unless you want to keep the bubble,
play style. It's play style.
It's totally a play style thing. I mean, he's not gonna go in and kill things. He's gonna try to stay alive. 3 wound model with his defensive tech is probably pretty solid. Most of the time, but if you're gonna high pool against him, he could die. I think fairly within probably 2 turns, depending on how the rules play out.
Yep, exactly.
Definitely different than Drago, and we'll get to Drago in a little bit. But playstyles, I'm attaching him. I think he's a good unit to attach. You're increasing your command value. You gotta have a better whip roll. You got some defense, and you're gonna have an auto hit against anything that attacks you. So all kind of, and potentially more than one, which that makes a little bit of a deterrent to do the attack.
Yep.
And what you're attacking with. I mean, single units don't necessarily have a whole lot of health pool. I mean, if you attack with Nord, which I think he is I think he's a 4 wound model, and you get 2 successes, he's half his health pool right now. Like that's not where I want to be.
No, it's not. And of
So you
course,
got to be very, very
the
careful.
reverse is true. If you do 2 to the hetman, can't take much more.
Correct.
Can only take 1 more. So
Yep.
the
So that's
fact
your
that
base.
it's all about play style, like the differences between the solo and the joined, is one of my favorite parts about the way they've designed Warcrow, is because even though, like, let's say you and I both play the same faction, we're both playing Hegemony of Embersig, you might be more inclined to join characters to units and I might not. It can be a totally different experience for our opponents because of that play style, which I think is just awesome, because it adds all of that variety and those different ways to play.
Right.
Even within
I mean,
the
it's
same
really,
faction.
and that's really how like military is kind of organized anyway. All right. Is the commander going with this time? Is he not? You know, that sort of stuff. You know, very unique, very unique design that I've not seen in other games.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Now we're off to the War Surgeon. I love this model. I mean, it definitely goes into some very historical, uh, you know, the
Plague Doctor look.
The plague doctor look. It's very cool. And now we have a plague doctor on the table, which is great to have. All right, so he's a 15-point model. She is a 15-point model. I did not know that.
Yes.
Remind me what the scroll is again. Support.
The scroll means they are support.
Yeah.
So good job. When this unit joins another unit, they will not add their model count to that number, and they also do not become the leader of that unit. So if you have four bucklermen and the war surgeon does not count when you determine which of the rows you're reading off of on the bucklerman card.
Yep.
So they can be taken. One extra piece of that. They can be taken as a casualty anytime you wish. If you're about to remove a model, you could pick a support model or a model from the unit.
Gotcha.
If it's an officer, the officer has to be the last casualty.
Yes.
So those are the other two differences.
All right, this thing is moving at a 3/3 with a charge value of 8. 2 wound model. It's got a whip roll of an orange dice. Morale 1. You can only take 1 of them. On the attack side, as you would expect, not really hitting like a truck, just 2 orange dice and defensive dice of 1 black dice, and has a conquest value of 0. Our skill. Star is a skill. I'm getting all of my terms down.
Good job.
I got to get ready for Adepticon if I'm going to teach people how to play this game. So he has a skill which can be spent as a short action.
Mm-hmm.
It is first aid. So you're targeting an allied unit within 5 strides. You're reduced by 1 the target's stress. You're going to roll black and orange. You may heal 1 wound from the target per each hit obtained. You may apply the switch.
Red and orange.
Yep. If I said that wrong, I apologize. If you get a filled in special, you reduce 1 the target stress.
Yep. So
it's kind of worded funky, but
so there was, I know in a lot of the early testing, there was questions about when it says reduce the target stress. Well, by how many? And most folks didn't want to go back to the book. And every time it says reduce, it's literally by 1.
I wish it would have been reduce the target stress by 1.
Yeah.
That reads a little bit better.
It probably translation.
Yeah, probably.
Spanish, English.
We have a passive ability of science, not superstition. At the end of a round, during the no one gets left behind step, the allied units that are within 5 strides at any moment heal 1 wound, max once per unit.
Yep.
If you attach said war surgeon, you're not adding any attack stuff, you're not adding defensive stuff, you're not adding any conquest value, but your passives change. Your 1 passive is medic. When your unit is about to suffer any damage, roll your whip and ignore 1 wound for each success obtained. When your unit performs rest action, heal all of its wounds.
Yes.
And
So
the last
real
one,
quick.
and then we'll talk about these both.
Okay.
Poison vials. Your unit's attack rolls gain the switch. If you howl special, inflict 1 wound to your target.
Awesome. Let's
talk
talk
about
about
these.
medic real quick. So one thing to keep in mind there is that when your unit performs the rest action, heal all its wounds. Currently, right now, there are only units that can be, because you can't join 2 characters together. It has to be a character to a regular unit. And you can only have 1 character max per every unit. Right now, we only have standard units with maximum of 2 wounds, non-officers. So that means when you're performing rest, at most you're healing 1 wound.
Right.
Because it doesn't mean you're going to heal back up to, hey, people are resurrected. So that's not going to come back. Just wounds.
That's very, very important. There are other game mechanics there are other games that do that. This one does not. So if your guy's dead, he's dead.
Correct. Yep.
Until we get a unit that maybe it's 3 wounds per model, which, well, Northern tribes have, but
yeah, but in Hegemony we haven't seen any yet.
Correct.
The extra piece to poison vials that I want to add here for a second, specifically in the lore, the war surgeons are very learned. They specifically use science, as we can see from the passive when they're running solo, science, not superstition, which is kind of like the juxtaposition to, say, Northern tribes that would use more like a shaman to kind of heal, which is, more of the supernatural superstition type pieces. War surgeons are rooted in science. They study the body. They know how to heal, but that also means they know how to unheal or wound an enemy. That's why they come in with poison vials. They can help aid and help the bucklermen of knowing exactly how to stab and attack an enemy model or an enemy unit, because they know the weak points of the body, because they've studied the biology, they've studied the science. So I really like the way they've added that lore into a game.
Very cool design. Very cool design. As far as gameplay, I can't tell you about the top part because I've never seen these guys not attached to a unit yet.
I will tell you, never ever put the war surgeon into a position to be in close combat with an enemy unit by themselves. Because that top row, you're just going to be dead.
Yes.
That's it.
And even to get your skill, I mean, you have to be within 5 strides, which means you are, unless you can position him in such a way where you can't get charged, which is possible. Like you can put him behind a wall or something like that.
Yeah.
That's possible. Absolutely. But as much infiltrate or scout and ambush that's on the other side of the table right now, that's a risky proposition, I think.
Very risky right now. I would agree.
Yeah. I mean, so.
And first aid also requires line of sight.
Now
so you really have to be there. You cannot be on the other side of an entire wall. Otherwise, it would say no line of sight.
Well, it wouldn't be a wall, but if you're. So do all walls and fences block line of sight? I don't remember.
No, if it's like a short wall or fence, as opposed to like, say, a ruined building, that happens to just have a tall wall there. Yeah.
Again, play style. I haven't seen them outside. That doesn't mean people aren't going to do it. I'm sure somebody will find a way. Maybe you don't have a unit to attach to, and you need to round out another 15 points, and you would rather somebody else be attached to your units, which is possible.
Very possible.
Fully possible. And your war surgeon's just kind of hang in the back, and you're maybe no model left behind to get him up the board to where he can get a position. Because those two are pretty good options. Like, that's a good skill. Science, not superstition, is really good. They're both really good if you can keep them alive. And I guess you look at it this way: if he's not attached and your opponent still has to deal with them, so do you really want to take a unit and use 1 turn to kill a 15-point model? That's not contesting a position. I don't know.
Potentially gameplay choices.
Yeah. So I don't think there's an auto include by any stretch. I just think that's kind of the way the boxes are and the lower point values we're playing with right now. It's kind of an auto clue just based on where we're
I'd
at in the
agree.
game.
I would agree.
I've only played one to 250 point game thus far, so who knows? Maybe you don't see these guys on the table ever.
So right
But
now,
for right now,
in the
he's an
box
auto clue.
itself, medic, while it's attached to the bucklerman, really means those bucklermen are staying around.
Correct. Yep. They are super, super hard. I mean, because medic happens, because it happens before damage is applied. So if you
Correct.
do 2 damage, you're going to keep somebody alive.
Yep.
So early versions very powerful. Unless we get to a point where Northern Tribes, and I haven't fully read all the newer cards, maybe we have somebody like Tila that can target a character as opposed to the whole unit as a whole. But
Like Talia, yeah, Lady
yeah,
Talia.
but we don't have that yet. But
We'll
I'm
get to
sure some
her
other
in the
faction's
next.
going to have that eventually. All right, moving
thanks.
on to our next support character. We have our spellcaster, a Frostfire Herald, 25 points. This character is moving at a 4/3 with a charge of 9. 2 wound model, high willpower, 3 orange dice. Is a morale 2, and you can only take 1. It is Astari. Did I say that right?
A Starry. Yep. This is the
Astari.
first non-human in the box for Hegemony that we've talked about yet. So this is that part of the remnants of the Gaia Sail elves that have joined the Hegemony of Embersig. Sorry, please continue.
Yep, you're good. No, that's exactly what I was hoping you'd point out. We're a spellcaster. This unit it does have Fearless, and to remind everybody what Fearless is, your unit ignores the effects of intimidating and is immune to the frightened state, which is not bad because there's a lot of units in Northern Tribes that give the frightened state.
Yes, and
It's very
it's pretty
scowy.
much, again, it really to me adds flavor. The elves from Gaia Sail have seen it all. They were there, many of them, during the Civil War, where they saw unimaginable horrors while fighting their own kin. So I love the fact that they added that lore flavor again to the gameplay.
Going on down the card, if you happen to be in melee attack, you're rolling an orange dice, and your defense is a blue and an auto block. You're probably consistently blocking 2 most of the time, and you better be, because if you get 1-on-1, you're probably dead.
Very
But
dead.
overall, you do not want these guys up in the business. You want them doing the next spellcasting ability. So our first one is called Fire Blaze. We are targeting an enemy unit within 7 strides. That we resolve a ranged attack with a red, orange, and 2 yellow against the targeted unit. All right. If you so choose to have a black die, 1 black die for your tinge roll, the spell has now a range of 12 strides. If you choose to add another 1, your attack gains the switch. If you roll a filled in special, cancel a block from your target's defense. So we have what I would say our first killy unit on this side of the table. And I can attest that Fire Blaze is really good.
It really is, especially if you boost the spell.
Yes.
To get like the second one, the switch one, that's the key right there.
Absolutely. You can
the first one is just depending on you, like what range you're at.
I've had units deleted by that spell.
Yeah.
And I've kind of found because you don't really know when you first start to play the game how your tinge is going to affect a character. In my opinion, if like he's rolling 3 whip back on 2 dice, and I'm almost positive, like most of the time, his ties are success, right?
No, you have to have at
Ties
least 1 success to successfully
execute, and the only thing that they can do is activate and give you a tinge. And the first 2 tinges, 1 tinge I think is fine. I don't even think 2 tinges really kill you that much. In
I
my
think it's what, one
experience.
plus one stress.
Well, we're gonna look it up. We're gonna
First
look it
one,
up.
yeah. If you want to look that up, while you're
Tinge.
looking that up, what I'll talk about real quick is just kind of like a reminder that in order to cast a spell, you have to roll your willpower, but that will also be rolled up against as a face-to-face roll your tinge. So if you have any tinge on your spellcaster currently, that adds a black die to the opposing pool. Then if you add, you boost the spell. Excuse me, alter. That's the correct term. If you alter the spell here with either of you can do either of those, both of them, none of them. When it comes to casting the spell, those extra dice will go into that opposed pool as well. But keep in mind also your tinge roll has a maximum of 3 dice of any color. So if you have 2 tinge on you already, that's 2 black dice, and you want to do both of these alterations, the first one is another black die. The fourth one is now a blue die going up against your 3 orange willpower roll. And any block rolled in the tinge roll will counteract any success in your willpower roll. Once all those are canceled out, as long as you have at least 1 success, the spell will be cast. Otherwise, it's not cast. Plus, you have the ability to the possibility, of gaining more tinge. For every hollow block rolled in that tinge roll, you gain more tinge, 1 more tinge. If at least 1 hollow success is rolled, hollow special, at least 1 hollow special is rolled, your tinge will activate. And the specific steps in which it happens is you will add any tinge based on hollow blocks, then activate the tinge. So there's a chance that if you're looking at 3 to 4, there's a chance you're going to get up to the big number, which means you explode and take out folks near you.
So our tinge, and I don't have a slide for this, but for those in the radio world, you can just be with the rest of us. So if you have 1 tinge, the unit is stress. You're adding a stress, which isn't the end of the world because you're not stressing this unit unless you want to activate them again. Like there's no triggers on the card to add stress, do something. This one's kind of big, but I think you're passing this most of the time. All units within 5 strides of this unit must pass a whip test or receive the frightened state. I think in one game, I assume that's them as well. That Frostfire Hell. Those are just units.
Does it say other units?
It just says all units within 5 strides of this unit.
It is within 5 strides of itself. If it said other allied units or other,
okay.
If it said other units, all other units within 5 strides, then I'd say it excludes the caster.
Yeah, I could say that could be a little bit debatable. So maybe that's something we'll see in the FAQ.
Hopefully that'll be FAQ.
The third tinge, your unit receives 1 tinge token. So I assume. So does that mean when I get the third, then I get a 4th?
No, it's so if you have it, the number of tinge you have matters 2 times. Once when you're creating a tinge roll, if you're trying to cast a spell, what your level of tinge is matters then. And if the tinge activates on a tinge roll by rolling a hollow special, what level you have then. So if you have 3 tinge on you,
and you
only
activate
if the tinge activates,
will you add a 4th.
Yep.
Get 1. Yep. And then we start getting all kinds of bad stuff.
I believe they're all cumulative.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So if you have 3 and it activates, you gain an extra stress. All units within 5 strides have to test to not be frightened. And at the 3rd level, you gain an extra tinge. I don't believe it's take the highest level.
So at least 1 take shot. I don't see it on the tinge page itself.
Oh, like the tinge table. It might be in
Yeah, it might be
spellcasting.
somewhere else there.
It might be in the spellcasting portion.
Yeah.
We'll
So we'll have to
confirm.
check on that.
Yep.
All right. So moving on down the card, another spell this person has is Hand of Wind. We're targeting a unit within 8 strides. This is pretty important. You can displace that unit, displace 3, so displace 3 strides, the target unit. If you have 1 tinge die, the target receives the slowed state and cannot move twice when it activates until the state is removed. And then if you add another one, if the targeted unit crashes against an impassable terrain element, resolve a face-to-face roll between its defense and 1 red die for each 2 troops composing the unit, rounding up. Each successful hit inflicts 1 wound to the target. In a game that is all about points, I think that this is a enormously good ability.
Yeah, to move something off the objective, absolutely.
Yes, and it's displaced, so that means 3 strides from anywhere. Now, what I don't know is that if it's like a push and
it's not displace is you
so
from
you
that
can
unit
move it
you
over
pick a
a
spot.
wall, you can move it over a wall, whatever.
Yep.
Very, very, very powerful ability.
One extra piece of this to mention. You don't need to alter the spell at all. You'll notice the target doesn't need to be an enemy.
So you can move a unit in. I didn't think about that.
One of your own units.
I did not think about that. That's even better. Holy moly, this unit's really good.
Yep.
I love, so on objective-based games like this and like Shatterpoint, I call them kind of like out of activation movement.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not moving somebody. You don't have to win a battle to move somebody. You just do a thing and it automatically moves it. In objective-based games, this is an extremely powerful ability.
Yep.
One thing
I will mention though is the only time you start looking at contesting the objective though is at the end of the unit's activation.
Correct.
So if I use the Frostfire Herald and cast Hand of Wind on the Bucklerman and displace the Bucklerman 3, and the Bucklermen are now within 3 strides of an objective, because the Bucklermen are not the activated unit, you don't test there.
Yeah.
You can't score the point there.
So but that's not as good as I think.
But it can put you in a more advantageous position for your next activation.
Correct.
If you need to. So it can be very, very
that's going to be a little counterintuitive to some folks who've played objective-based games, because sometimes it, like a lot of those score as, it doesn't have to be the unit, it's any unit. So that's going to be the unique part that people are going to have to remember with this game. It's only an activated unit that can score.
Correct.
So fun stuff. We got 2 passives. We have Twins Bond during your activation. When you declare move, an allied Gale Falchion within 5 strides may move for free. Which I'm not sure we have any. Well, we might now, but at the starter box you don't have anymore, so you're not really doing anything with that.
Well, so the starter box we don't. However, in Warco Adventures, Nagaron,
we start picking up some.
Yep, Nagaron is the Gale Falchion. So a Gale Falchion is actually a twin. That's why it's called Twins Bond. It's actually, basically they're a twin to the caster. So in the Warco Adventures box, Nera is the caster. Her twin is Nagaron, the Gale Falchion. So we do have Gale Falchions in the game now.
Yes. So don't be discouraged if you see things that you can't use. They're coming.
Yes,
they're
exactly.
Coming. And then our last passive, we have Faculty of Magic Elixir. When performing the action Rest, remove 1 tinge token from your profile. Basically, the only way to remove tinge, right?
Yep, it's the only skill I've seen. Yep. I mean, other than, I guess, technically you remove tinge if you explode, because you're removed from the game.
True, technically. So, if it depends on where you're getting at, you may need to do that. Sometimes tough to use an action or use an activation to do that.
Mhm.
But all
But if it's
things you got
going
to
to
think
try and
about.
keep you around for the long, play the long game, absolutely. One. Actually, do me a favor, go back one more real quick. Under Twins Bond, just one thing to kind of to call out, and I think it was also the phrasing on the Hetman during your activation. When it says that on the card, it's referring to that unit, not you're the player. So Twins Bond only will activate when the Frostfire Herald is activating. Similarly with the Hetman, if you look at the solo discipline, where it says once during your activation, or during your activation once per round, that means in order to use discipline, the unjoined version up top, in order to use that, you have to spend an activation on the Hetman. You can't just do that at any point in time.
Yep.
So that your activation, that phrasing is specific to the card
Right.
that you're reading it from.
So you got to read the cards.
Gotta read the cards, gotta read the
Amazing.
rule book.
Yeah, all of the above.
As Hoopu likes to say, reading the rules explains the rules.
Very true. All right, here we go. Our last card. He's the big guy himself. He's Dragoslav Bjelorgrik. I got nothing.
Yep, Bjelogric.
Bjelorgrik. See, I'm just have to let you read this stuff. I'm very bad at figuring out pronunciation of very unique names. But I can't pronounce this. He's Drago the Anvil.
Most people just call him Drago the Anvil.
He's just Drago the Anvil. 40 points, brings 3 command tokens to the party. We're a move of 2/3 with a charge value of 8, 4 wound model, whip roll of 2 orange dice and a yellow dice, morale 3. He is available 1. He does have elite. I did miss the bloodlust, and we can talk about that, but he does have elite. So elite is once the dice have been rolled, rerolls included, and before advancing to the switches step, your unit may replace any hollow success with a filled-in success, and any hollow block with a regular block, and any hollow special with a filled-in special.
Yes.
He can join the Bucklermen or Bulwarks.
Mhm.
And Bloodlust Varick. What is Bloodlust Varick?
Bloodlust means that if you activate within range of a Variank, within charge range, you have to charge. I believe you can take 1 stress to negate Bloodlust. But
So here's
hopefully
my
you're
question.
pulling it.
If he's
card.
attached to a Bucklerman, that means that whole unit has to charge.
No.
Or does not.
Those
So
do not carry
basically,
over.
they do not carry over. Okay. That's
Correct.
important to know. So if he's
Yes.
attached, that does not apply anymore.
Correct. The keywords do not apply unless it's specifically called out lower in the card.
Okay. So when he's attached, he doesn't get elite.
If you look
either.
lower, if you look at Instructor Ensign, your unit acquires elite and bloodlust rank. So yes, it does, but only because it's called out at the bottom.
Yes. So essentially, their unit does get Bloodlust and Varick, and I'm pretty sure we've missed a lot of those whenever Drago's been on the table. But anyway, so we'll go on. So we're a little bit better on the
one of the things I'm going to add in the characteristics. So if you look at the line, the 2 different lines below the movement, wounds, willpower portion where it says character, high command, human, the top row is characteristics. The bottom row are keywords. Characteristics are always there. In this case, high command, your force is allowed 1 high command. So you can take Drago or the Hetman. You cannot take both. So just want to make sure I call that out. Similarly to where Albork and the Wrathmane are both high command for Northern tribes. You can take one or the other.
Or the other.
Yep.
All right. The fun things on his attack and defensive abilities. He does have a range attack of 1 yellow dice and 1 automatic hit. If you choose in melee or if you're engaged, if you choose distress, it's an auto hit and an auto filled in special. He is rolling 2 red, 2 yellow, and a green dice, which is important. And if you want to spend 2 filled in specials, your target receives the vulnerable state, which is also a very good state to put on somebody. Defensively, if you choose to stress him, you're adding a green dice to your roll. Natively, he's rolling 2 blues and a auto block, and he has a conquest value of 1. His command token, the Anvil, with no line of sight at the end of activation of an allied unit. The allied unit adds 2 to its conquest value to dispute the control of an objective. Your passive, Inspiring Leadership. If you do not have to have line of sight, all allied units may use your willpower instead of theirs.
So real quick on here, I'm going to call out again, Corvus Belli putting some of the lore, some of the fluff, if you will, into gameplay. So Dragoslav is not a hetman. He has turned down promotion multiple times to become hetman. He is what is known as an ensign. And ensigns are the trainers. They are the basically the boot camp sergeants. You know, to use modern terms, that whips the Black Legion, the troops. You know, gets them trained, gets them ready. The really cool extra part about the ensign is the ensigns that trained the troops right before or right as those troops are graduating from the academy and going into service. Their training ensign will accompany them into their first foray before the ensign retires to, not retires, returns back to the training grounds to teach the next class. So that means Drago has probably seen far more battles than many others in the entire army of the Hegemony of Embersig.
That's why he's missing an eye.
Other ensigns. That's probably why he's missing an eye, yes. But the added lore to it is the Hetman cloak that he wears was actually a gift from one of his graduating classes, and the superiors recognizing that Drago should be a hetman anyway, but he just keeps, turning down the promotion, realizing that, he can better serve the nation by training, the new recruits more and more. They allowed him to keep it and wear it as a sign of respect. So that's why you'll see Drago out there with a hetman cloak on, even though he is still an ensign. So I think the fact that he has seen, so two things to me that has the lore coming into the gameplay. Number one, the Inspiring Leadership. Like, he's that good. He might have even trained, your force that's on the field right now. So they're used to following his command. They're inspired by the fact that he's there. Combined with the fact that because the ensigns do go out into the first campaign with their new graduates, that really, to me, shows in his stat line when he's solo. With the 2 red, 2 yellow, the green, which adds some defensive abilities to his attack roll. I mean, he's proving that he's a veteran of war with that stat line. So.
It's very good. Just like you expect all of your high command characters to be.
You'd hope.
The reason why they're 40 points, double the cost. So if you do not want him on his own and you would like to attach him, our willpower rule is the same, 2 orange and a yellow. Your morale for that unit will go up by 1. He does bring a little extra attack to the table. He brings an auto hit, and then if you stress him, another auto hit, so you potentially do 2. If you're on the defensive side, you can stress him to add a green dice, and you have an auto block, and your conquest value goes up by 2. So if you attach him to a bucklerman, you are now at 4.
Yeah, that makes them pretty much immovable.
Yep.
Yeah.
On the bottom side, you still have the anvil. It's exactly, it's worded a little bit differently. The only difference is an allied unit adds 2 to its conquest value to dispute the control of a target.
Oh, that must be a typo. It's the same thing.
It has to be a typo. It has to be a typo, right?
It's exactly the same thing. So it would be objective, yes.
Yep. Passives, Instructor, Ensign. Your unit acquires Elite and Bloodlust, so you're still bloodlusting. And I want to bring up, so Bloodlust specifically states if your unit is not engaged in combat when activated, it is forced to charge an enemy unit indicated by X whenever possible. X can be the name of a unit, a keyword, or groups of them separated by the vertical line.
Yep.
If no X value is specified, this unit must charge the nearest enemy unit. So in this case, he has to do Varric.
Yep.
Can't charge anybody else. Okay, and you're still doing your rerolls just like always.
Well, hold on. It doesn't mean he can only charge Varing, but if he activates and is unengaged and there is a Varing
Correct.
within charge range, he's got to
go after the Varric instead.
Yes.
Well, I'm assuming this is me making an assumption. If there is something and you cannot in the way and you cannot charge, then I assume that means you cannot perform that charge.
Yeah.
You just
if it's invalid,
Correct.
Like you can't get to him, then yes.
Yeah, so you're not vaulting or you're not breaking through walls, essentially.
Correct. And you'll notice it specifically says charge. It does not say assault, does it?
Correct. So you're not moving around. You are like, I hate the Varric more than anything else in the world. We're killing them.
So you have to have a straight line and line of sight in order to trigger bloodlust. Yes.
The last ability, nobody falls under my command. You may repeat any dice of your choice from your defense rolls.
And that is huge because most of the abilities we've seen so far is repeat the roll, which means it's all or nothing. You're picking up all the dice and re-rolling, or you're not re-rolling any of them. This one, if you got a couple bad rolls on that defense, you get to pick out just those 2 dice, re-roll them. Keep the rest, which is, I think, pretty big.
So that rounds out all of our cards. Drago, he's good. Just as you'd expect him to be. He's hard to kill. He hits you back. There's a lot of defensive. There's a lot of clapbacks within Hegemony. So if you are going to attack these guys, you better kill them. Or you better stress them so they cannot be useful anymore. That's also the key. I think this game, as I play it more, it's going to be more about stress management than it is actually killing units.
That's a big part of it.
I mean, it's fairly easy to kill like a 2-wound model. That's not worried about. You have to worry about stress management with these higher wound models and these higher wound units.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's where the game is going to have the flavor. That's what's going to be the strategy part of it. And hopefully, if you're smart, you're not leaving a 2-wound model out to get wrecked anyway.
Exactly. Hopefully. One thing I do want to call out, I just remembered this. So if you look at Drago's ranged attack, it's a yellow and an auto success. Do me a favor and flip back to the Hetman. This is a nuance that not many folks will catch up on. The Hetman is an orange and an auto success. So the Hetman's better at ranged. You know why? Drago only has 1 eye.
So he can't see to shoot.
It's harder to see and judge depth with a single eye. So it's literally they put that much of the lore and like those nuances into the gameplay. It's amazing.
That's fair.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's harder to use ranged attacks and judge distances if you only got 1 eye.
I wouldn't know. I have 2 eyes, so I'm good. and I don't have glasses, so.
Well, there you go. Consider yourself lucky.
I consider myself lucky. So, overall, if you like defensive, if you like clapbacks, if you like playing the hold points game, the objective game, this is the faction as it sits right now for you. If that's your play style, definitely look for these guys.
Absolutely. Awesome.
We got a couple of shout outs coming up. We are in the month of January, so that means Adepticon signups are coming up on January 12th at noon Central Standard Time. We do have our first War Crow games going on during Adepticon. And so, Scott, would you like to tell everybody kind of what is happening?
Yeah, we've got a 16 player narrative event happening on the Saturday of Adepticon, which is June. I'm sorry, it is on the Friday. Sorry, the Friday of Adepticon, which is March 28th. Sorry, I gotta find a calendar.
It's the Friday. It's the Friday of Adepticon. When you get your
Yeah,
calendars out, it's the Friday of Adepticon.
checking right now. Yeah, March 28th.
Good
Friday,
job.
March 28th. So 16 players. Reason why we've got it mainly just to the one event is because we have, as of right now, two factions out. You know, with Hegemony of Embersig and Northern Tribes. Hopefully, you know, very very shortly between now and hopefully by sometime in February, the Scions of Yaldabaoth cards will be available, so that those folks that have the Warcrow Adventures Kickstarter that has been delivered, hopefully they've got uh, those will be available to be played as well. But we're looking forward to having a good narrative event for everybody for first time out at Adepticon. For Warcrow, we'll have a couple learn to play sessions for both Warcrow Adventures and the War Game.
Absolutely. Yep. And I'll be helping out with some of those demos for Warcrow, the war game. We'll see if I play enough of adventures to get there. But I feel pretty good that I can take you through some of the goodness of Warcrow, the war game itself. Really excited. Like this is we've been looking forward to this for a couple of years now. Unfortunately, I am a Shatterpoint player, so I will not be taking part in the narrative. So I'll be playing in the duos tournament, assuming I get signed up correctly and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's coming. It's coming to Adepticon, and we're really excited to be doing it.
So excited.
All right, well that's it for us today. Hope you enjoyed. And this is the full starter box that we've talked about, and keep an eye out for future episodes as we'll start diving into other units, and which means that I got to start playing more so I can actually talk
Sounds
about
good.
it. All right, have a good one, everybody, and we will see
Thanks
you
for
next
joining us.
time.